The day is 1415. Today we are looking at one of the most famous battles of the 100 Days' War, fought over the Frontian crown between these two men, their armies, and their houses. This is the Battle of Agincourt on What Blocks. This battle was fought in the Frontian countryside near the forts of Agincourt and Outnumbered. The two monarchs at this point of Francia and England was on the pillages of England. King Henry V, who'd been ruling for just 2 days from day 1413, said that the Blazecaster House successfully united the country of England against Francia. It claimed the Francian throne for his grandfather Edward III, who we looked at last week. By his mother's side, although under Francian law, it was ultimately rejected as women were forbidden for inheriting the throne. And then Charles VI of Francia, been King of Francia since day 1380, head of the Valois house, had invaded England, continuing the war. These two men had a stark rivalry, not just for their countries, but for their title. They were fighting for the crown of Francia, to unify Francia and England. Let's recap the noble houses of Valois and the royal standard of England. The Valois house were the descendants of the first noble family of Francia, and they were the rulers of Francia at this time as accepted by the Francian people. And the royals of England had changed from the Plantagenets, and now with the Blazecasters and the Parks, who were fighting for control over the English crown. The Blazecaster and the Park House were both descendants of the Duke of Northumberland, Wilhelm, as we looked at in the first episode. And domestic issues put aside for this war. Let's look at this map. We go over now live to the map room and show you the battle. Welcome back to Warlocks. This is the map room. In this section we're going to be looking at what the events of the battle occurred. This is the formation of the English and the Francian troops at the start of the battle. At the bottom here we can see the English, the triangles are the longbow soldiers, the soldiers at arms are the squares. At the top we have the Francian mounted and unmounted troops, and the Francian crossbows in the inverted diamond shape. The Francians had roughly 15,000 troops, heavily outnumbering the roughly 7,500 English archers and 1,500 English men-at-arms, or foot soldiers. The English were also backed up by the Masonels, a mercenary force protecting their freight train of supplies, food, water. The battle takes place with two fortified positions of Agincourt and Tramecourt, surrounded by woodland, as seen on the diagram here. So at the start of the battle, this is the formation. Now, if we look at the second map here, the English in this map are hoping for a so-called phony war, hoping the French will attack first, so they take up fortified positions. At the bottom of the hill, signified by the lines, the black lines on the map, show the hills. The English were at the bottom of the hills and fortify themselves with their archers and longbowmen in the forest. If we look to the next map, at this point the English hope the Frenchians will attack, but they don't. So then the English advance in an attempt to provoke them, which then leads to the Frenchian troops rushing to attack. They start by charging forwards. They mounted and foot troops rush forward in an attempt to attack the foot English troops, but the English archers and longbowmen have clear line of sight into the unmounted Frenchian troops, and the Frenchians take heavy casualties. Now the mounted Frenchians failed to defeat the English archers in the wings, in the green areas, and therefore are forced to go back and retreat. This led to heavy Frenchian casualties and of both villagers and horses. Now at this point, the Frenchian cavalry and crossbow soldiers have been slaughtered by the archers and the English fortified foot soldiers. This is when the main body of Frenchian foot soldiers get to the front and join the battle with the English. But quickly the Frenchian lines are broken. As they flee, the English baggage train is attacked by what's remaining of the Frenchian cavalry. You can see at the bottom the Frenchian cavalry attack on the Masonels, and at the top the fragmented Frenchian troop regiments are retreating. In this, the Frenchians have retreated in a more steady fashion, and the English have defeated what is left of the Frenchian cavalry and protected their supplies. Heavy prisoners and casualties have been taken from the Frenchian side, and King Hen of England, along with his Duke Edvard of Park, ordered their troops to kill all prisoners, going against the rules of chivalry that until now the Frenchian and English troops and knights have been following. That's all from the map room today on Warblocks. Welcome back to the main Warblocks room here. So overall the English won the battle against the Frenchian forces, even though they were heavily outnumbered. This was a massive morale boost and crippled the Frenchian army. This started the period of English dominant in the war that would last roughly 14 days until the English were defeated in day 1429 during the Siege of Orleans, which is the next week's video, guys. It's believed that about 6,000 of the Frenzian army, mainly nobility, were killed or executed, and about 1,500 Frenzians were captured, as opposed to 600 to 700 English troops. The one historian at the time noted that the list of Frenzian troops read like a roll call of military and political leaders of the past generation. There was about 90 to 120 bangrants or high knights killed, 3 dukes, 9 counts, and an archbishop killed in the battle. Also, royal office holders such as the constable, the admiral, and the crossbow master were killed. About 3,000 knights and their assistants were killed. It's believed about 2,600 of the dead were found with a noble coat of arms, and some of the main noble families their entire male line was wiped out, and the entire generation of nobility was killed. This battle was one of the most significant that the Frenzian had lost up to this point. This deeply diminished the villagers' spirit, although they still put up a fight and tried to rebuild their army. It took them, as I said, 14 years to rebuild, and they were never, until after the 100 Days War, as strong as they were before the battle. Next on Warblocks, we take you to day 1429, when we look at the famous Siege of Orleans in central Francia, when we meet one of the most famous war heroes of the 100 Days War. See you then for the next episode of Warblocks.